Yes, we are.
So we'll do some spirituality and addiction recovery. Gonna wait a couple of minutes for people to filter in.
Mhm. Mhm. Interesting.
So welcome everyone. This is Spirituality and Addiction Recovery with Reverend Kathleen Gannon. I've had the pleasure of knowing Kathleen for almost 20 years.
Mhm.
I met her at the same place that I met the guy that's on the other side of me,
Mhm.
um, in church at St. Paul's Episcopal in Delray Beach.
Mhm.
She ended up getting there the same year that I did, 2005.
That's right.
And I met Jim in early 2006, which led me down this pathway, wormhole, rabbit hole. Um, because he told me immediately, my name's Jim and I'm a recovered alcoholic. I'm like, what's that? Never heard of that before. So I love all things Reverend Kathleen and St. Paul's and spirituality and addiction recovery. So why don't you tell us
Mhm.
what is your draw to addiction recovery and particularly spirituality on that path?
Well, most of so I lived in Delray, and Delray is an incredible recovery community. And when I came to St. Paul's in Delray, I knew the view of addiction from within my own family. It's every family, as earlier speakers have said, it's everyone. I think it was Jessica who said, if you're going to relate to people, you need to understand addiction. And certainly as an Episcopal priest, I knew that. I could sit and talk to people. I would sit and talk to people who were struggling, and it was it's still my privilege to bring kind of a faith perspective, a spirituality perspective, a connection to the divine perspective, to the healing that is recovery. So, one of the things that I could talk to Adrienne, not often enough, but often. And we talk about kind of the role of faith in recovery.
Mhm.
And the first thing that came to me as we were pondering that question for this interview is, we're not alone. And I have heard that throughout this day. We're not alone. We're not alone in terms of the people around us, the families we come from. We're not alone in recovery. We're not alone in this world, and we're not alone in this other world. There's something beyond us. There's the higher power that we all seek and want to be connected to. So my first point, we are not alone in this. The other thing I wanted to say is that healing, to me, comes in community, comes in many ways.
Mhm.
Right now, I'm serving as a hospital chaplain, and I did so through all of COVID, which was one of those what I call God instances. I started my chaplaincy work on March 16th of 2020, which was like the day the world in our world shut down. And what I've learned in that time is that healing can be a very divine experience, even when it's the ultimate healing of, returning to that eternal place that we all came from. And what I've also learned is that there are lots of evidence-based studies that show that spirituality and connection to God and connection to the divine promotes healing, helps us heal, pushes us to heal, draws us to heal. And we were talking earlier, Carrie was mentioning kind of the scientific base of this. And increasingly, we're finding that there's evidence, there's quantifiable,
Mhm.
clear evidence that 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 an understanding of the divine, a connection to the divine is is key to recovery.
Yeah, I so agree with you and want to
Mhm.
highlight that point because there was a Baylor University study done, and they looked at the role of spirituality in
Mhm.
addiction treatment,
Mhm.
and they were surprised at how little spirituality was in the treatment centers unless they were particularly spiritually based, right?
Right. Right.
And it's something that I think is not talked about enough because it brings up angst, especially in early recovery. So can you talk a little bit about, how can you ease into those spiritual practices in recovery?
Absolutely true. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is community, right? One of the things that the traditional faith communities have come through a very tough time. The legacy denominations are trying to figure out how to be today and how to serve people who are struggling with the ills of the world today, like addiction. And it's really an opportunity when you enter into, especially in early recovery, what you find is a community of people who are welcoming, who are helping you to see a new way of being. And the early recovery communities, taking one step at a time, right? Mm-hmm. The spiritual practices that come in that are some of the practices that will lead you into a pathway to recovery. So you'll hear a lot of what I call the popular suggestions. Mm-hmm. Prayer, and I'm going to talk about prayer because I love to talk about prayer. Prayer, meditation, worship, service, all of these things are really critical. And Adrian, you said earlier, you can't think your way into a new behavior, but you can behave your way into a new life. And that's, I think, what the spiritual practices do from the very early days of recovery to the days where you're the one turning around and serving others, right? I think it was, so it's part of the pathway. It's part of and every person, I believe, needs to find their own pathway.
And what about music?
Oh, music. Well, Adrian, I know you. Music, the soundtracks, the background of our lives, really. We've talked a lot about emotional experiences and behaviors from our early childhood. One of our early speaker, Anita, said, children were told to be seen and not heard. And, in my life, there's a soundtrack to everything, and I remember some of those early girl groups, terrible things that they encourage women to do and be. The soundtracks are so important in our lives.
Yeah.
It's the music that we listen to, it's the choices that we make, and it's who we surround ourselves. So who's the voice in your life? Mm-hmm. Who are you listening to? One of the prayers I put together a series of prayers for your gift. And it's just 7 prayers that happen to motivate me in certain different circumstances. And, who are you with? Whose voice are you hearing? Where are you hearing that voice? It is an important question. And there's a prayer in the list for that. Mm-hmm. Who are you traveling with? Who are you surrounding yourself with? Prayer, I'll talk about prayer all day. Prayer is a wonderful conversation with God.
Yeah.
And the question is, how do you hear God back, right? I know what I want to say. My laundry list for God can be very long. Please, I need this and I need that, and my friend needs this, and so needs that. But how do you hear God back?
Yeah.
And I encourage people to, how is it that you hear God? So for some people, it's meditation. You have to sit quietly and put out all the other voices and listen to that still small voice inside. Mm-hmm. Excellent pathway. Mm-hmm. For some, as Adrian says, it's music. For some, it's worship. For some, it's service. For me, for example, it's action in other. I hear God's voice in other people. People will walk up to me and, I'm thinking about something I'm talking to God about. And mm-hmm. people will walk up to me and say, and I'll be like, okay, that's God, because they couldn't have known I was thinking about that, For others, it's nature. I mean, if you've ever been to one of the beach meetings, if you've been to just a day where you need to be outside and take a walk and feel God's presence, if you ever wonder about the power of God, just look at the ocean. Take a minute and just look at the ocean. I think it was Carrie who said earlier that 20 minutes of being out in nature is better than an hour of cardio in the gym, which I much prefer. I have to say that would be my choice too, But for each person, to be considering, what's your pathway? If you're a meditator, there's things you can put on your phone, insight timer, a meditation called Calm. You can find ways to stop in the day and listen to God. The other conversation was about having a touch point. I think it was Trisha who said early this morning that to ground yourself in your day, in anything you're called to do, in your recovery, build your touch points, And I will submit to you that prayer and a quick conversation with God is a great touch point, the way to start the day.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Jim and I have been in the hallway and dropped to the floor and said, "Can we pray?"
yes, yes, yes.
Those are sacred moments.
Yep.
And it's interesting too because it's a relationship for me, right? Rather than a spiritual practice or a religion, it's really that one-on-one time with God and really wanting to hear, "Well done, good and faithful servant."
Mhm. Mhm.
At the end of the day, at the end of the big day.
Yeah, yeah. And it really is, it's other.
Yeah.
You can connect in this world. We've all kind of admitted this world's kind of a mess, especially in our observation right now. And when you are in a sacred pathway and experiencing the otherness of a higher power, of God as the divine, the divine, it changes the day. It brings your blood pressure down. It
Yeah,
gives
of
you
course.
perspective. We've talked a lot today about who are you? Coach Dave, what's your why?
Yeah.
Why are you here doing this? You know, um, and in terms of the why, I truly believe that everyone has a purpose, everyone has a reason, and it's our joy to discover it. To what was it Anita said this morning, the joy of, just leaning in and owning and really looking at so what is it I'm really supposed to do today?
Mhm.
You know?
What's the real priority? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What's the real
Mm-hmm.
priority? Because we
Mm-hmm.
can all
Yep.
get lost in the myriad of things to do
Right.
and forget about our purpose
Mm-hmm.
that we're called here to do and to be for
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, for others. Sometimes it's really hard for people in addiction recovery um, they have had relationships with churches or with people in their past
Mm-hmm.
that have been less than good. And so they bring that. They also have some people have a problem with the idea of God being father
Mm-hmm.
in the traditional sense, right? So that I love that
Mm-hmm.
we honor all pathways to the divine
Mm-hmm.
and don't make a judgment call based on, well, this person isn't doing it the way I would want them to do, like they do it at Celebrate Recovery. Well, I'm glad that works. I'm glad that meditation works for people. I meditate to music. I keep a prayer journal. Like everybody is individual,
Mm-hmm.
and so is your purpose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And how would you
Yep.
suggest that you go about finding that?
I think there are lots of ways. I think one is, to take the first step and engage, to find a community that you resonate with. For example, I come from a very traditional faith background,
Mhm.
and I didn't stay there for very long. There were things that part of the legacy denominations, part of the kind of the 50s and 60s critical church are terrible for today.
Yeah.
But you mentioned Celebrate Recovery.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of wonderful connections in this community. So make a connection is, I think, the first way to start. And to find what connects you to God and others, and to act on it. I'm, as you know, very big on action. And one story I really wanted to tell was that I find in Delray, particularly because that's my context, and I know we've got people from all different states here today, but
we have something different here, don't we? It's a Mecca.
We do. And it's really about the community taking care of each other, which is what every church and synagogue and mosque and temple, it's what we want to do, right? We want to find a place where we can be honored and where we can serve and know who we are. And so in Delray, it's a very strong community. People are going to serve each other. They're going to help each other. And for people who are not in recovery, it's kind of magical looking. And I have a friend who said one time, when I'm around my friends who are in recovery, because I'm not, she said, when I'm around my friends who are in recovery, I feel like a muggle. And the Harry Potter reference to this magical world, and the muggles just don't get it. They just don't get it. And I personally believe that, every faith community ought to go through the steps and figure out ways to become closer to God and know themselves and serve their community. That's what I think.
Great answer. What would you, I'm just curious, because we've had so many conversations. Somebody who's, just starting this out and getting their feet wet, one of the things that you offer that it's so good is a spiritual gifts assessment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think it's important. We all have been given gifts. They're not the same gifts.
That's right.
I don't have the same ones as you do.
That's
and
right.
you don't have the same ones as I do. And that's okay.
Right.
That's fact. It's better than okay, because we can cover all the bases that way. And to learn that it's important to let other people have their purpose.
I, as Adrienne says, have done a fair amount of work in helping people identify what gifts they've been given. It's wonderful to do one-on-one. It's also great to do in a small group of people who know you, because your friends, your immediate circle are going to see things in you that you might not see yourself. So to sit and do kind of an understanding of it's an inventory of what the gifts are and how you, and we've seen people move into whole new careers, into whole new ways of serving when they have that aha moment as they're coming through, particularly as they're coming through a recovery program. And, in early recovery, it's hard to tell. You just have to take the steps one day at a time, one step at a time, one prayer at a time, one conversation at a time. And as you begin to emerge and really own your own sobriety, there's a whole discovery time, a whole discovery period, So without any disparagement to people in the service industry or Starbucks particularly, someone said to me once, I want to be more than a barista. I want to do something with my life. And while I was in recovery, having a service job was just the best thing in the world. But now I think maybe I want to teach. Now I think maybe I want to go into the medical field. Now maybe I want to do something different with my life. And it's important to it's a journey. I think which of our speakers said it was it's a journey that we're on, and it's a journey that we're on together, and we're not alone. So there.
I know that we're not alone. I know that You have been with us here every step of the way, serving as the lodge's chaplain for all these years.
Mm.
I really appreciate you coming on, my friend, and talking to everybody. I do want to tell everyone that Kathleen has graciously given us some wonderful gifts. The first thing is a spirituality in addiction recovery handout. It's got quite a few pages to it, but it's got these prayers. And these aren't just prayers that Kathleen looked up or had Chat GPT write for you.
Yep.
She got her notebooks out
Mhm.
and combed through, her private stash of material just for you
Mhm.
guys.
Mhm.
And that's the free gift. And then the VIP gift is just incredible. It's really going deeply one-on-one with you about how do I even do a spiritual practice in my life? I'm not even sure if I believe in God, or I'm not
Mhm.
even sure I like God,
Mhm.
or I like God, but I don't know what I'm doing.
Mhm.
She can help and has offered her time one-on-one. So there is for the VIPs, you will be getting a QR code to scan and book a time with Kathleen.
Mhm.
So if you haven't upgraded to VIP, it's a good time to do that now, to get that one-on-one call. But I certainly do appreciate you coming in and talking to our community. We talk a lot about gifts in the fourth step,
Mhm.
and not enough actually about gifts, but it's the defects and the assets. And the
Mhm.
assets are just as important. So I thank you for bringing that to our attention.
You're most welcome.
And we will see you back in the main room, everyone.
Okay.